We've got to talk about this alleged conspiracy that goes so deep that at one end, it involves a Puerto Rican prison gang, and at the other end, you have the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. And if this Propublica report's correct, they're still trying to bury the whole thing under the rug. And as far as how this whole thing worked, according to investigators, first you had a drone that would fly over a prison in Puerto Rico and drop off a package of narcotics. Then staff at the prison would help get the drugs inside and distribute them while acting as lookouts. And then finally, leaders of a prison gang known as Los Tiburones, or the Sharks, they would sell the drugs to other inmates. But then also here's the twist, they didn't sell them for money, at least not always. Instead, they sold them for votes. Specifically, votes for the island's now Republican governor, Jenniffer González-Colón, who I'm gonna refer to by her nickname, Jago. And she's got this long history in Republican politics. She served as the party chair for the territory, represented Puerto Rico in Congress, and actually did a lot of work with Latinos for Trump. And so in January of 2025, when she took office as governor, you had Trump congratulating her, and Jago, she pushed for a statue of him to be built at the Capitol building in San Juan. All while, for a president who claimed to be concerned about drug trafficking and election integrity, Trump didn't seem too worried about the allegations that were coming out of Puerto Rico. And even though the investigation implicated not just inmates and prison staff, but possibly Jago herself. You had multiple sources telling ProPublica that officials were working toward determining whether she or her campaign were involved in the scheme, and they found some stuff. Stuff like evidence that Jago had spoken to a gang member, including a Facebook post in which one gang leader bragged about his connection to her, or with him reportedly attaching a photo of himself talking to her on WhatsApp at the time that she was running in her party's primary for governor. So while they kept probing into that, you had federal prosecutors beginning to prepare an indictment against the people that they had already caught. But then, all of a sudden, everything changes in November of 2024, right after Trump and Jago won their respective elections. According to ProPublica, higher-ups in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Puerto Rico told the prosecutors to exclude the voting-related charges against the inmates and all charges against the prison staff. So even though the drugs for vote scheme was described in the indictment that December, nobody was charged for it. And then, soon after Trump entered the White House, a supervisor to the lead prosecutor reportedly told him to stop the investigation altogether, which kind of looks like Trump's DOJ's covering up an illegal scheme to buy votes for a Trump-loving Republican governor. Now with that, if you ask the DOJ itself, they point out that the order to exclude election-related charges, that was given before Trump took office, which is true. But it's also true that the U.S. Attorney for the District of Puerto Rico was appointed by Trump and reportedly enjoyed a friendly working relationship with Pam Bondi when they were both in Florida. Plus, if you ask people who were involved in the case, they say that the timing with Trump's election victory was clearly not a coincidence. Right, with one saying, before the election, it was definitely full steam ahead. After the election, that all changed. And you had another adding, we invested so much effort to make a difference, we're frustrated, but there's nothing we can do. And then a third explaining, it was like you're watching a puppet show, but you can't see the strings. You know what you're seeing isn't telling the whole story. There was some kind of invisible hand. And then something that made it even weirder is that a magistrate judge in a different case last October mentioned what they called an unrelated white-collar investigation involving the governor of Puerto Rico. But the U.S. Attorney's Office denied that any such investigation even exists. So really, whatever's going on, it doesn't seem like we're gonna get much clarity from this DOJ. One of the crazy things is, it wasn't just inmates exchanging drugs for votes. Like, the allegations were even more fucked up than that. Reportedly, if the inmates didn't go along with it, there were punishments that included withholding food or forcing them to sit with their arms folded while they were beaten and kicked. And, at least according to the indictment, many of these inmates were addicted, so the only way they could keep from going into withdrawal was to vote for Jago. It's all just so insane, and yet rather than seemingly trying to prosecute and investigate these actual crimes, you have Tulsi Gabbard seizing Puerto Rico's voting machines. And actually, with that, we then got to talk about what Trump's minions are doing with our elections back on the mainland as well.